Today's video is about basic straight kameez with full sleeves and round neckline. Because the shirt is symmetrical, so I folded this cloth in half to mark my measurements. This is supposed to be a loose shirt, so I'll add about 1 to 2 inches to all my measurements. To decide how much cloth you need for the width of your straight shirt, measure the circumference around your hips and add about 2 inches to that, so that would be the width of your shirt. A shirt could be of any length. So first decide how long you want your shirt to be. Then add about 2-3 inches to that. For length, I measured from my shoulder's high point to my knees. I have already cut out this cloth according to my width and length. First, pin the cloth all around, especially if it's slippery, to avoid shifting around. I didn't pin because I have been sewing since very long. The length of my shirt is 34 inches and this cloth is 37 inches long. So it has 3 extra inches. Half would be for seam allowance and 2.5 would be for hemming the bottom of the skirt. So now we are done measuring and we cut out the cloth according to our measurements. So let's start drafting our shirt. Start drafting from the folded side of the cloth. So first draft your shoulder measurement. Mark half of that. My shoulder measurement is 15 inches, so I am marking 7.5 inches. To take shoulder measurement, take from one shoulder point across the body to the other shoulder at your back. Now mark 1 inch under that mark for shoulder slope. Measure your armhole from the shoulder slope mark. The way you see my measuring tape here is for me. You measure it from the shoulder slope mark which we marked before this measurement. Mark half of your armhole measurement, mostly it's same as shoulder measurement, or measure the topmost part of your bicep and add 1 inch to that. Now mark 1/4 of your fullest part of chest and add 2 inches to that. For example, if it's 32 inches, so 1/4 of 32 is 8 inches and then add 2 extra inches. Now mark 1 inch diagonal from the corner of the armhole and draw a curve here starting from the top and join it to the bust point. Now measure 7 inches right under the bust point. That's where medium size waistline is. At this point, measure 1/4 of your waist plus 1 inch extra for making it loose, so mark that. Then join the bust mark to this waist mark. Now go 7 inches down again from waist mark, and that is hip point. So mark 1/4 of hip circumference plus 2 inches. I'm not marking my exact measurements here and adding 1 or 2 inches to every measurement because remember it's a loose fitting shirt. Then join waist mark with this hip mark. And after that just join this point to the end of the cloth edge, leaving about 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. We are doing it like this because we already measured the width of our shirt, so it's okay to just do it like this. But if you haven't measured the width of your cloth, then mark 2 inches or 2.5 inches more than your hip measurements. That would be 1/4 the width of your shirt bottom, and then join this mark with the hip mark. To draft neckline, measure 2.5 inches from the folded side. That's the width of the neckline. Then mark 5 inches for the depth. Now mark 2.5 inches at the bottom of the neckline again, so that we can draw a straight line. Now join all these points, and at the end you will have a nice rectangle. Then mark 1 inch diagonally from the corner of the rectangle. After that, start drawing a line from the folded side and join it to the 1 inch diagonal point, and then join it to the middle of the neckline depth line, or you can call it the side line. So the front neckline drafting is done. Now let's work on the front armhole because this is supposed to be a little deeper than the back armhole. For that, first find the middle of the armhole by folding the tape in half. And then from this point, mark 1 inch inside toward the neckline. And then draw this curved line to shape your armhole. Then double check this measurement. It should be 1 inch less than the shoulder measurement. So you see the back and the front shoulder difference here. And another difference would be in neckline, and it is that the back neckline would be less deeper. So the drafting of the front of the shirt is done. So now we'll draw 1/2 inch seam allowance all around and then cut it out. This is the shoulder slope line which is connecting neckline point to the shoulder slope point. So cut this and then cut the rest of the shirt. So this is the front of the shirt. To draft the back of the shirt, I'll use this as a template. So I folded the front piece in half and put it on top of another cloth folded in half, the same way we did for the front piece of the shirt. So the only difference is the neckline and the armhole. So the front and back armhole has 1/2 inch difference. So I am drawing back armhole here and then the seam allowance for this. For the back neckline, mark 1.5 inch down from the top, and that's the depth of the back neckline, and the width is same as the front neckline. Okay, so now cut on all these lines. Okay, so shirt is done, and now we are working on sleeve. For sleeve, first fold the cloth lengthwise in half. For full sleeves, measure the length from shoulder to wrist plus 2 extra inches. Measure both sides so you don't end up cutting crooked. Now fold the sleeves widthwise. Because our armhole was 7.5 inches, so the sleeve width must be the same, and then plus 1 or 1/2 inch for seam allowance. Mark 3 inches down from the top of the sleeve. The difference between the length of the sleeve and the inner seam is your depth here. So mark 3 inches there. First mark the length of the sleeve. Then join these 2 points in a curved line. After this, measure your sleeve opening. Now join the sleeve shoulder point and the cuff point. The sleeve front side is about 3-4 inches deeper than the back, so draft it like this. It's like a crescent. Now cut the sleeve, leaving 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now separate the sleeves from each other. Now cut this deeper part in front of sleeves. For that, set both sleeves on top of each other. It must be such that both sleeves right sides or wrong sides facing each other. Once you set that, then cut the front of sleeves cape deeper. With this, our shirt cutting is done. So thanks for watching, and if you like this tutorial, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to stay connected.